Okay, welcome back to another video. We're doing a Christmas cook. You can't tell by some of the decorations in the shack. Christmas is coming up, so we're doing another ham. We've done a few hams on the channel in the past, but this is the first one that we're actually going to boil first. So I usually just go straight to the roasting. I don't boil them down, so thought I'd give it a little bit of a try this year. So we're doing a bit of a cider. We're going to boil it down in cider, and we're going to make a cider and apricot glaze to go over the top of it. Then we're going to roast it afterwards. So interested to try it, see how it goes. We'll talk through what we need to do first, just to kind of give you an idea of the process, and then we'll kind of just crack on and get it done. So obviously, first part of the process is you need your ham. This is a 3 kilo ham from Apple's Butchers. We're not going to do anything to it at this first stage. We're going to leave it in the net. We're going to leave skin on, fat, everything the way it is. We're going to boil it down in the Dutch oven. After that, then we'll take it out and do some bits and pieces to it. To boil it down then, we have the McIver's cider, so a couple of bottles of that going in. Then we'll top it up with a bit of apple juice. We have some aromatics, so we have a cinnamon stick, a couple of Star Anise, about a tablespoon of peppercorns, and about half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of cloves, just to add into that liquid to kind of get the flavors going in it. Kind of gives you that like mulled cider vibes as well. So then while it's in the Dutch oven, we can monitor it. We are going to use the Thermapen Smoke. We'll plug in the shorter probe. That should be enough to get into the center of this and still let me get the Dutch oven lid on. And then there's a little hole at the side to feed the wire out through, so we're not pinching that. That way I can let this cook away, go and get on with my day. Once it gets up to temperature, then we can come back and deal with it for that second process. The Kamado Joe is fired up, sitting around 200°C. We're going direct for this first bit. Grates are on the middle level as well, with fire directly below them, so that should get enough heat into the Dutch oven to get that liquid bubbling and cook the ham down. So I'll clear some space, get rid of my coffee. Got the lid off our Dutch oven for now. Bring it in. This is probably the perfect size. This is the FT6, so I think that's the 6-quart Dutch oven. It's a good size to fit. This is quite a long ham, so we'll set that down in place. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Get rid of this, go and wash my hands. Right, so next off, in with our cider first. Two bottles. Brings us up to about halfway. Top the rest off with a bit of apple juice. So that brings us about, I'd say 3/4 of the way up the Dutch oven. That should be enough. It's not going to completely cover the ham, but once we get the lid on there, that'll cook down properly. We shouldn't have to worry about it. Plus, that top skin layer is getting took off anyway. So aromatics, we'll go in with our cinnamon stick. We'll just sprinkle the rest of them in. Those will slowly get down in. Start to add a bit of flavour into that as well. So before we pop the lid on, take our probe and just try and push it down in. So my little gap is here that my cable's going to come out through, so we'll try and keep it pointed that direction. And we'll just puncture down through the skin. We're getting at a slight angle. We can hold that in place, get the lid on, and now get it over to the barbecue. So open up our lid, barbecue's nice and hot. Set on our Dutch oven. Close that down, bring our cable out through our gasket so it doesn't get pinched. And we can plug that in to our Thermapen Smoke. Power button at the back, turn it on. So our top one, we have the alarm turned off because obviously we're not using it. The bottom one here then, if we hit set, we want to set our high alarm, so we're going to set that to 65°C. If I hit set again, low alarm we don't really need, so we'll just set it to 0. Hit set again, so you can see current temperature 6.8. We've set high alarm at 65. The alarm is on for number 2. So the little receiver here, we can turn that on. It'll pair up and connect. Kind of hard to see that on camera, but we can take this in the house, keep an eye on it. Whenever we reach that temperature, this will let us know and go off. Then we can come back out and have a look at it. Okay, our ham is cooked. Time to get it out of the liquid and get it ready for glazing. So I have a tray just to try and avoid as much mess as possible. Put a glove on. First thing we want to do is get the net off. Okay, then next, once we've got rid of that, we want to get this skin and down to the fat. Trim a little bit of the fat off, don't take it all off, but we want to definitely get rid of this skin. Much easier to trim off whenever it's cooked or boiled like this, so that's one bonus of doing it. Our fat is nice and soft, so we can go ahead and score into it. And we're just kind of scoring a diamond shape into it. That diamond shape will really help the glaze. So if it was just flat, the glaze would just kind of run off, it wouldn't get a chance to stick to it. But the glaze is going to catch in all these little crevices, and that fat will continue to render down. It should give us a really nice colour on the ham. Okay, so that's the ham ready to go back on again, ready for the glaze to catch into it. So we'll set it off to the side, and then let's talk about the glaze. So as I mentioned, we're going to go cider based. So I have the little Kamado Joe Half Moon basket. I've changed the setup with the barbecue, so we had it all direct, cooking grates in the middle level. I've now lifted them to the higher level, and I've put a heat deflector in one side with a drip pan on it, just to stop some of that sticky glaze dripping down onto the heat deflector and making a real mess. So I'll add a little bit of water to that just as a catchment. It's not really for any other purpose. We're going to make the glaze up in this, so we're going to start off with, again, another 500 ml of the McIver cider. We'll cook that, get it bubbling a little bit just to get some of the alcohol out of it and get the flavours in there. Then we are going apricot as our main kind of sweetness. So we have apricot jam. We're going to need about 200-300 grams of that. A dash of cider vinegar just to cut through some of that sweetness. A little bit of wholegrain mustard because ham and mustard goes amazing together. And then just a dash of nutmeg. So we're going to bring that all together in here, get it nice and bubbling, and then we're going to start brushing that onto the actual ham. Okay, so direct side, indirect side. We'll get our basket on here, 500 ml of our McIver cider. We'll close down and let that start to sort of come to a simmer, boil off some of that alcohol, and then we'll get the other ingredients in. And while that's bubbling away and coming up to temperature, we will get our ham on. And on indirect side, over that drip tray, close down the lid, let that start to roast. I'll kind of render down a little bit more of that fat, start to take on a bit of colour before we start brushing that sweet glaze onto it. Alright, our cider has been simmering away for maybe about 15 minutes or so, just as it's been bubbling, and you can smell the sweetness coming off it, but you can't really get that alcohol smell off it anymore. So we're going to go ahead and start adding in our extra ingredients. So apple cider vinegar, we're going to go in with maybe a couple of tablespoons just to give it a bit of bite. We're going to go in with half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Next up then, the star of the show is our apricot jam. So this is a 450 gram tub, so we're going to go in with about 2/3 of this. I'll slowly start to break down into that hot cider. And then the last thing is a nice heaped teaspoon of wholegrain mustard. Okay, so we'll close the lid down again. We'll get this back up to temperature, back up to a simmer, just to let that apricot jam kind of melt down into the cider. Then we'll start brushing it on. Okay, our glaze has been simmering away. You can kind of see it around the edge. Almost looks like little sugar bubbles. It's kind of going a little bit syrupy. It's still quite loose, which is kind of what I want. I don't want a really thick one because I always find they burn very fast on the ham. So it's quite a loose glaze, but we're going to go ahead now and start brushing it on. Again, just any kind of brush, and you can kind of spin it over and let it fall in between the cracks in your ham. Again, this is why we have that drip tray, because this falling onto a heat diffuser would make an almighty mess. So first brush on, We'll close up, give it 5 minutes or so, and then we'll come back again, give it another brush, and we'll keep going until we get the colour we want. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the colour in this now. It's got a few nice little dark spots. You can kind of see through those video clips that how liquid that glaze was at the start, but as it kind of warms up and continues to cook and this starts to solid up, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. So you don't want to thicken this up too much before you start brushing it on. But I'm happy with the colour that's on this now, so we're going to lift it off, get it into a tray, and we're going to let it rest for a little while before we actually cut into it. Okay, we have been resting for about 15-20 minutes out on our cutting board. I'll maybe actually bring these around to this side. You can kind of see how nice that glaze has gone on the actual ham itself. Our fat layer is nice and coloured up as well, a few little crispy bits on it. The ham's still nice and juicy. Smells amazing. I can't really describe the smell that is coming around this cart at the minute. That smells so good. Alright, I'm gonna give it a try. Grab a slice. Just a little bit of ice. So this doesn't really have much of the glaze on it, tiny little bit around the bottom. So this will kind of give us an idea of what that boiling it in the cider and stuff does for it. So give it a try. It's kept a good amount of its saltiness. You can definitely get the apple and some of those like spices coming through. I don't know if that's more the smell coming off this is making me taste it or what it is, but there's definite like cloves there. I wouldn't say there's a massive pepper taste of it, but either way it's really tasty. Let's have a bite, a little bit of that glaze on the side. Absolute winner. It's the second apricot ham I've cooked on the channel, and I still think that is my preferred. You can probably do it with orange as well, but it's just the right level of sweetness. It's not like a maple and honey ham, which is super sweet. You can still get the real flavour of the ham, but you get that little tinge of sweetness just to hit against the saltiness of the ham. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to give this one a try yourself. I will also leave a link to everything we've used. Accessories wise, and the Thermapen Smoke, absolute game changer when it comes to Christmas dinner, so make sure you grab one. You can stick 2 probes into it, so you can technically, if you buy the spare probe, you could run one for your ham and your turkey, do them both at once and just run it all off that one thermometer. Game changer. So give it a try. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.